Hello everyone. I am Russell Nolte. I run the Author Stack, and I'm here with two awesome guests. I guess technically guests. I don't uh, uh, this is the first like post writer MBA thing. Monica and Greg, do you guys want to introduce yourselves, and then we'll start talking about like Curios and all the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm Monica Leonelle, Russell's former business partner. Though we're still all good, and I will be a guest on this whenever you would like, Russell. I'm happy to be a guest. Yeah, so gosh, what do I do now? I have my own company called The World Needs Your Passion, and I haven't had to say that in like 4 years. So there you go.
Yeah. Awesome, Greg.
Not a demotion for you to go from business partner. It's more, yeah, you're onward and upward sort of scenario. So, but I'm Greg. I'm with a company called Curios, and we're probably going to dive very deep into what we do. But at the root of it, we're trying to change the industry for authors, specifically surrounding digital content. I can get started on what we do right now if you guys want.
Go for it.
Our company, we're all technologists, so we're all engineers. We take a very tech-forward approach, and we know how digital is changing, right? So we know that the consumption of ebooks is growing. The consumption of audiobooks, especially post AirPod invention, is also growing pretty dramatically. And that's kind of coming at a cost of physical, So as the digital landscape is taking off, you have a perfect opportunity for authors. With digital, it's easier to distribute. It's cheaper to distribute. You don't have warehousing. You don't have shipping. You don't have printing. But for some reason, the authors are still currently losing extremely high percentages of the sale. When we're looking at that as engineers, we're just like, what a ridiculously easy problem to solve. Let's go for it. And we can get even deeper into all of the ethos of why we entered the space specifically and why we're so bullish on authors kind of taking control of things, give a little bit more of the backstory. But the basics are pretty simple. We think that for digital content, it should be easier for a reader to buy directly from the author than it is to go through a third-party platform, even one as big as Amazon. We think it should just be easier to go direct. And the benefits of direct, we think are the author should get 100% of the sale. The author should have access to the reader's contact information. That's kind of how any real direct site works. When you go onto a platform like Amazon, they are collecting your information. They're keeping it for themselves, and they're using it for whatever other pieces they want, but they're not giving it to the author, even though it's the author's reader. So our platform kind of switches that up. And then also direct really means you're in control of your IP, you're in control of the content descriptions, the pricing. You're not beholden to something else. You as the author, it's your work, you're setting the tone for that work. And you're maintaining IP, copyright, all of that too. So that's kind of what we mean by direct, and that's what we aim to provide. So don't know if we want to get deeper and deeper, but I'll give you guys too.
Well, so. I guess Russell is okay if I just say I want to hear. Yeah. I want to hear all the ethos stuff because I'm curious, like how, I know as I understand it, Curios started with musicians.
Yes.
And it's now moving into books and starting to work with authors as well, like fairly recently, within the last 6 to 8 months, it sounds like, as I understand it, and feel free to correct me. But yeah, I'm really curious, what do you see as like the similarities between musicians and authors? What do you see as the differences in what we're trying to do? It's obviously, I've tested the platform. I know Russell's tested the platform. It's a great, it's basically like direct sales without like some of the hassle of some of the other direct sales platforms. And it's also kind of, it's not, I don't know if you would describe it this way, but there's like a hybrid retailer feel to it as well, because it's got like a storefront and there is some discoverability as well. So I see it as almost like kind of in the same space as Substack, where it's kind of, there's just this hybrid nature to it where it's trying to combine some of the best of both worlds. So yeah, I'm curious.
Right. Yeah. Love getting into pieces. So yes, we did start in music. We started out in music around 2022. So towards the end of 2022, we were launching very deeply into music. We kind of transitioned from being an agency surrounding digital rights management. So the original founding of the company, we were an agency. We were in the digital rights management space, which basically means you're ensuring that the right people have access to digital content, right? So whether that's, films, movies, whatever it is, our agency handled like thousands of clients, experts in that space. And as we were working in that space, we realized, well, there are humongous industrial sized holes like across the board for digital content. And we had all these tools that we built for it. And we were like, well, let's just launch those tools. It can be a nice like showcasing of all of the power that our agency has. And then B, it can be a solution to the spaces that need it. The co-founder of the company, Grant, he is an ex-musician. He was a founding member of the bands Lifehouse and Dawes, so both very famous bands. But even in a band of that level of fame, he still had to quit and find a new career because he wasn't going to be able to support a family or a realistic lifestyle off of music. So that's kind of always been living in the back of our minds as well. And during that time, there's also a thing where music is the most underserved community when it comes to digital. They've been basically stripped of all kind of rights. They've been stripped of all monetization possible from their music. They're expected to give it all out for free. And then the deep hope is that they can encourage you to come to a live show where they can make money. On top of that, they have the chance at being included in a commercial or being famous enough to just be the commercial themselves, like a perfume commercial or something like that. But beyond those two things, they've lost all access to their digital revenue, which is really sad. So during that time, we have the solution where we're deep in music. Brandon Sanderson writes his State of the Sanderson 2022 post, and in it, he was literally talking about a desire for our platform. However, he was talking about it for books and not for music. And we're like, well, we built that exact thing that you're asking for, but we built it over here in music. And that started to live in my mind. And then as we were kind of working through the platform a bit, kind of getting rid of kinks and updating things, that was kind of constantly living on my brain. Now, flash forward to middle of 2024, our platform is stable enough that we're like, we've got something really good here. We've got super strong musician buyership and things like that. Let's get into different spaces. And so authors stay forefront of mind. We started doing kind of reaching out to authors within our network. We landed on Willow Winters, which was a huge win for us. We had no real idea of who she actually was. It was just a friend of a friend, made the connection. She's a wonderful author. She's super open to trying new platforms and kind of getting her name and brand out there. So she was willing to give us a try. She started with one book just to like help us see, okay, how do we handle audiobooks? How do we handle ebooks? How do we handle the distribution? Are there any bugs? And then while we were working through that, we're talking like 1 week later, she gets deplatformed from YouTube. They call her content pornographic, even though there's literally no visual pornography. It's just an audiobook. She had all the proper disclaimers about 18 and up and followed all the rules to a T, and they just cut it overnight. No warning, no corrective action, just out. So she was pretty upset with that, of course, as anybody would be. She lost over 100,000 subscribers there, like huge loss. She then contacted us and she was like, I am tired of the reliance on platforms and yada, yada. I'm bringing everything to Curios. So she bought a huge tranche of books to us, announced it to her community, and it was pretty explosive, and that kind of started the waterfall for us to then, add more authors and get deeper into the book space, which we found is kind of equally as problematic as music, or it's trending in that direction. And part of your question, Monica, was about the similarities between the two. And we're finding the similarities are getting stronger and stronger in a very negative way. So when you have something like Kindle Unlimited, at the surface, it's great. I upload some books. As the books get read, I'm getting paid per page read. And, I'm going to be making money from books that it's going to be hard for me to actually promote and monetize myself. The dark side of that is literally the streaming industry model applied to books. Streaming industry model is you're paid micro cents per page read, per track listened to. If you're paying micro cents per page read, it's the same scenario. So now you're kind of being led down the same path as music. It also is not a big stretch of the imagination to see what Spotify is now doing with Findaway Voices. They have a very specific model, and they're now applying that model to audiobooks as well. So the dark side for authors of this is obviously we've seen what happened to music. The musicians are not thriving in that world. I don't recommend that path. However, musicians have this ability to still monetize with a live show. Authors don't necessarily have that ability. So if you as an author lose your digital revenue, you're basically then reliant only on print, which is still a fine world. There's lots of money in there. You can still make a good career. However, you don't have the same tools that musicians have to then monetize that fame. So it's kind of a darker journey that we think. And so that's one of the reasons we've been particularly excited to be in the author space, because of all the times for authors to sort of take a step back, look at the landscape, look at the way things are changing and trending, to then make a decision, as collectively as possible for what you do with the content that you made, that you wrote for your readers. We think that time is like right now. So you got to kind of choose, like, how are you going to define the digital future for readers? And is that future one where it's going to be in the streaming model, and we have to hope for like billions and billions of readers, or billions and billions of page read just to get enough money to sustain a career? Or is it going to be one that's a little more on the direct side, less readers, but maybe a little more promotion and maybe a little bit more of community building on the author side? And we're trying to just make sure that there's a viable alternative to this future that authors are being very aggressively led down. I think without any meaningful competition, to see something like Audible switch its revenue to minutes streamed as opposed to books and credits and things like that, I don't think is a big stretch of the imagination. And like I said, I brought up the Spotify example as well. So, and Kindle Unlimited as well too. So it's one of those things where we as a company are trying very hard to provide a wide open door, so that if things are not working out in this world, that I don't think it will work out that well, you can come to at least a platform like ours as a default and start a new trajectory there.
Yeah. So people will ask, like, okay, well, like, Curios, why even try it right now? And I will say, like, they will pay you to try it. Like, that's that's like, to me, if someone is like, okay, we're on Substack, like, I don't even necessarily have books, or like, why should I? Like, there are all of those reasons are great reasons, but like, and like, they will pay you for performing actions, like setting up a book, like getting 10 cents, like all of these things. So like, I think this is a great
I
model,
love you, Russell.
obviously. Like, I get it. So like, but like, what's in it for you is like actual money. And I don't want to get that far into this thing before people are like, oh, well, like, what will you do for $50? Like, on Substack, you'll do a lot for $50. I know,
Sure.
but like, this is like I will say that I love all of the things about Curios. Like, I think that like it's a very easy interface, like that you get direct access to your readers. That like ethos wise, it's very close to like what the Substack ethos is, as far as like, and also like on Substack or like on blogs, you basically have to give everything away for free and then hope to monetize later. But like, instead of having a live show to monetize, or even a Kickstarter necessarily, just have like upside down question mark of like how you make this money. And so like, I want to state that for the record, because at our show, it was the thing when people were like, why even try it? Or like, I don't know if I have it in my bandwidth. And I was like, you can literally set it up in the next hour and like make $50. I don't know what to do. Like, go do it.
That's exactly right. And that's one of those things that like, it's even hard for us to talk about that sometimes, because it does come across as too good to be true. But I can explain the roots of why that's not the case. So as a business, when you're looking at spending money on Google or Facebook to attract new people, so if we're saying we want to attract a good author base to try the platform out, we're looking at spending $50 per author of the caliber that's at Writer MBA or these other conferences. Like, authors of that caliber, you can expect to spend $50 or more just to get them to see enough ads to then take the action to try. We were all in on that. We were like, all right, well, we'll park a huge budget. It was like an over $1 million budget. We'll park this huge budget into advertising to grow the base, to grow the platform and all these things. And when we looked at the numbers of it, we were like, well, guess what happens in a year and a half? $1 million or more is going to go to Meta and Google. And it's not going to go to the authors. It's not going to go to the musicians, the people that we are caring to help. And we were like, this is kind of silly and something's off. And I'm taking a little bit of credit for this, but it was actually a musician that was working with us at the time who was like, yeah, man, that's pretty expensive. You could just pay me to come on the platform. And I was like, yeah, we should do that. So we just kind of switched the model. So it's basically like, instead of us throwing ads all over the place to hope to get you to come try it, if you do try it, we'll give you literally the money we would have spent to get you on. And we're
Right.
just, it falls in line with our ethos. We ultimately want to be an extremely big change in the right direction. And I think that direction is in supporting the people making the content. So we have to just do everything in that mindset. And it's even affected how we've like raised money as a company and things. Like, we are from the ground up doing things differently. My kind of mindset is that you can't take the same roads to a new destination. So we have to pave different kind of roads so we can actually serve the creators and not just be serving consumers, sort of thing. So long roundabout way of saying, yes, we will pay you to try it out. And as Russell mentioned, I mean, like, honestly, 30 minutes would be kind of generous to get a book up. If you have the file and the cover and a title and a description, you're talking 5 minutes or less. The book is up and online. And then I think the remaining step would be just promoting it. Send out a newsletter, put it on your Instagram, say like, hey, I'm trying a new platform out. And then boom, you got $50. Like, that's simple. And that ranges all the way up to $12,000. So you can get as much as a $12,000 grant from us just by completing actions and kind of moving through the platform. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's great because, like, especially with authors, like, it's all word of mouth. Like, the best marketing is like word of mouth. So like,
yeah.
I just said it with unprompted to like right now. And I'm sure at least one person who's listening will like take advantage of it right now to
Yes,
like try it. Right. And like, if you can get, if you can bring 7 people, like, you will have like explosive, like you will have growth. Like, isn't that what Facebook found out like 10 years ago?
Yeah, that's exactly, and that's it. We are basically going all in on the word of mouth method. And also we hope that, authors are willing to. So, a couple things we maybe haven't covered yet on the platform is we have 3 basic tenets. One is every sale you get as an author on our platform, you get 100% of your sale. So if you're selling a $10 audiobook, say $9.99, every book you sell, you will get $9.99. We do charge the buyer a little bit more to cover the credit card fee, so you don't have to cover it. If there's a VAT, we charge it to them so that you don't have to cover that as well. And we charge our fee. So they might pay something like, a $9.99 book, they might pay $10.57. But most of the time, the consumers, especially in the United States, they're not necessarily like balking at that, especially knowing that the full amount is going to the author. That's got a lot of other positive benefits we can talk about. But then on top of that, as mentioned a little bit, you get direct access to your reader contact information. So every sale you get, you're building your email list, and then you're in control at all times, right? So I did mention that part. You're in control at all times. If you want to offer things for free, you can. If you want to offer them for sale, you can. You want to change your price overnight, you want to set a sale for a flash sale or whatever it is, you're in control. To us, it seems super obvious to provide that to an author, but I know that on a lot of other platforms, you can't control the price you sell things at, and that's crazy to me, So back off the soapbox.
I want to get you back on the soapbox because I'm interested. But yeah, I guess I think like the word of mouth part is such a great hook. I'm really glad you brought it up, Russell. I mean, we should have led with that, obviously, but I'm curious because I think like what you've been saying is like the reason that it's important to invest in the platform as an author, because it's not just being on the platform, right?
Yes.
Like, you need to be on the platform, then you need to get your whole catalog on the platform, then you need to train your readers to use the platform, so there's like a big investment of like energy, I guess, and thought, and there's 10 other platforms that authors are already on and using. So I think that part is, and like the creator, I think it's called the Creator Fund, right?
Yes, it is.
The Creator Fund, like you said, it goes up to $12,000. So some of those actions will happen as you kind of move through the Creator Fund funnel as an author. But, I think what you're saying is so important. And it's funny because Russell and I have both recently talked about this as well, about like how much the author community is starting to look like the music community.
Yes.
15 years ago, before really Kindle like took off, like most of the tech people thought that the ebook industry would go, or that the book industry would go the way of music as well, and kind of thought everything was going to go the way of music. But I think for books, Amazon basically was able to they were able to get enough e-reader adoption. They were able to find a business model that got people that increased the convenience level and lowered the price enough to where people were going to keep buying ebooks. But I also think some of that, I think it was great. And because authorship is kind of like this dinosaur industry, we were able to kind of stave off what was happening in music. But I actually think to some extent it may have just delayed it rather than saving us from it. And I think that's something that I don't know if either of you agree. I'd love to hear either of your viewpoints on that. But I also think do authors know and see that, and or do they feel like the ebooks, it's been 15 years that we've had ebooks and we've been selling them. So why is any of this relevant? And I guess I'd love to hear what anybody thinks about it.
I do think that you are very correct in honestly giving Amazon a little bit of credit where credit's due, in that they have very much popularized ebooks. They have very much popularized audiobooks, and they have kept them in the realm of sales for a long period of time. And what's been really nice about that, in our opinion, is consumers are accustomed to buying books. And even pre-ebook revolution, pre-2012, people weren't as accustomed to buying books. It was well, I'm just going to go to the library. I go to the library, I don't buy books, that sort of thing. But now it's a lot faster to pull the trigger to buy a book. And for me, I get the convenience of it. I get to read it on my phone while I'm putting my baby down at night. I love it. So it's one of those things where they have done a lot of good things to kind of advance that industry. But it is worth knowing that that company is not necessarily looking out for the author. They have shareholders, and that's their primary responsibility as a publicly traded company, is to deliver to the shareholders. And that's quarterly earnings, and that's more earnings every quarter. And some of that can come from growing your readership, so more people are buying books, and a lot of it can come from turning the dial on the authors and having people figure out, well, what's the squeeze point? How much can we squeeze an author to where they still stay on Kindle Unlimited, but they're unhappy? That's what they'll have, huge teams calculating those kind of numbers. So while we're very grateful for kind of the foundation they've laid, we do think it's now time for a change. And, additionally, one thing we think is, with enough author movement off platform, if you stop giving content to a platform, they will change their numbers right away. So if you want a higher page payout on Kindle Unlimited, you have to stop giving them the book, and then they'll give you a higher payout to then bring the books back. But any acceptance by authors is enabling them in their decisions, kind of thing. So that's where, again, I'm kind of getting back to that open door, where we're just we want to make sure that door is wide open so that authors have an alternative. And we hope that with an alternative, they then have a little bit of agency. They can choose, okay, I am no longer going to subscribe to this system. I'm going to just go onto my own system. And that comes with its own challenges, for sure. But I'd be curious to hear Russell's take on, what he thinks as far as the similarities to music and kind of in the digital age,
Sure, and so I get to have a different take. This is great. I did my normal take. So someone asked about what you would suggest for a one-time author who wants to get involved with more things, and I think this is I will respond as if this is the answer to that question, and then we can go from there also. But my feeling is that it is the music industry, and the thing that music learned over time is that you need to be everywhere. You need to have as much amplification as you possibly can, not just even on your own platform, not just on your own record, but on other records, in live, guest appearing, guest host, all of these things, everything from Jimmy Kimmel down to being on all the platforms is a thing that a musician has learned over time, that you don't know where that reader's going to come from, and you don't know who's going to buy a $2,000 ticket in your show. And so I need to be all of the places. And I feel for a long time, writers were able to get away with this idea that like I'm going to hire a book publisher is going to be, and my only contact is going to be that book publisher, and then like they're going to do things with it, and then like they'll be distributed. And then it was like I can be on Amazon, and like Amazon then will distribute my books, and good things will happen. And same thing with Substack. Like whatever it is, like we're in this world where like, oh, draft to digital, publish drive, like Kobo, like whatever I can be in Kobo. Like now I'm going to do like libraries and bookstores. Like there is there is no way. Like I guess we used to think more like the movie industry,
Yeah.
and like now, and like really the model should have always been at least like actors in the movie industry, if not like all musicians, because a musician knows you gain your brand by gigging, and you
Yeah.
start by gigging locally and using your own a combination of your own audience and the venue's audience to grow. And then once you can fill out like that those venues, you start going regional, and then you go and then you sort of grow. Like that has always been the model has always been collaborative, I guess.
Yeah.
And publishing has not been quite as collaborative. It's been this very solo thing. And whether your idea is I should go all in on a platform like Curios, or it's the other side of the music equation, which is like I need to be everywhere. Like if there is a Curios that's going to give me $50 to like
Yeah.
try their thing out, and like maybe probably the other thing that musicians know is like it probably won't, like immediately. Like none of these things are likely to save your career. Like having a gig at Radio City Music Hall will not save your career. Like it will allow amplification to happen beyond that so other people learn, and then they will go to the platform they want, and then they will like buy the thing that they want. But like you have to be on the platform that like they want to buy on. And the more that you believe in the ethos of that platform, the more you can invest in that platform. The more they allow you to own the chain of custody of your data, the more you can invest in that thing. And I actually think like Substack is a great like kind of corollary to this, because like
Mm.
Substack allows you to own your data. Like
Yes.
Substack allows you to even like connect your own payment processor. They allow you to do these things, but like Substack is not going to save you. Even if you invest all of your time and energy in Substack, there is a 0.001% chance that it alone will save you. But by being on these platforms and investing in their growth, like Curios or Substack or whatever Bob's Discount Plumbing site, like whatever those sites are, by investing in those, you are moving the direction of where attention travels. And the more, and you are now, by being early, like everyone is basically in
Yeah.
publishing to like Curios. Like the
Yeah.
more attention it gains, the more you will be at the top of that attention, and the more you'll be able to, in the same way where like, hey, the people that were on Substack when Notes launched had a very strategic advantage, because like they could then use this thing to grow, become at the top of the charts, and like then that amplifies down. So while I totally agree with like everything that you said, I think that like that other idea of music is equally relevant and prevalent.
Oh man, I cannot agree more. Yeah, the term in the author industry, of course, is like going wide, and I mean, as technologists, we know this. We know this for a fact. It's like you can't just have one website and hope that everyone finds you. It's like you have to have as much web real estate as possible, so you have as many landing points as possible to then grab people wherever they are. You know, and as a platform, we have absolutely no exclusivity. I mean, hopefully that's easy to conceptualize, just because we're like very open to the author and the creator. But we have no exclusivity at all. We want you to be as successful as you can be. So whatever is working for you, we want you to be there. We don't want to pull anyone from that. We do want to provide, very much like what Substack provides is we want to provide a place where the growth isn't just going to be confined to that platform. So every reader you do get to come to Curios, you get that email. So that then allows you to then do whatever you want with that information. Obviously, you want to be very respectful of your readership. So it's going to be kind of up to you how you communicate with them. But we give that for a very specific reason, because we want the growth to not stop with our platform. We don't want people to be confined by it. It's just basically like, here is a great tool for you as an author to grow and to be bigger and better and have more control over your kind of future and your destiny. When you're stuck into a platform, you can get deplatformed like Willow, and then boom, 100,000 subscribers. There's decent overlap. Those subscribers might be Instagram followers, might be on our newsletter. They're not completely lost, but it is a huge blow, and it's not really great. But then it's like, okay, so say that Curios gets nuked overnight, which won't happen, but say that it does happen, you at least have every single reader who purchased, and you can then very knowingly be like, hey, come find me here, keep up with me over here, I'm adding you to my newsletter, let me know if you don't want to be joining. It's things like that. So we want us to be successful, long story short, and so we're trying to provide the best tools possible. However, I cannot agree more. Like, getting as much digital real estate as you possibly can, I think, is the move. So yeah.
But I think Curios is like, it's a really safe investment because of that data exchange. So like, there are lots of platforms that we encounter in the author space. And just that, being able to get the email address. And like, I want to say too, the site is really snappy. It's really I haven't found a single bug on it yet. And I haven't used it a ton, but it's not buggy. It looks great. It's a great platform. And we don't often see that in the other space. Unless it's I guess if it's like a Substack or something, but and this is not totally an author specific tool, but the kinks are worked out, in my opinion, on a lot of the stuff. There's lots of different promotions that you can do that you can't do on any other platform that I know of. And if you have an idea, I think people could email Curios. It's still a small enough team. You could email Curios, and you could see if that's aligned with Curios's goals, right? And if they're able to build it, but I think there's a lot of it's not just the $50, right? It's this is actually a good place to invest. And if you don't have a direct sales store right now, and you don't have the time or energy to set up a Shopify or WooCommerce, this is a great place to do your direct sales. But even if you do already have one, there's new discoverability tools that Curios is building. There's a bunch of stuff that's going on over at Curios that is worth investing in. And it's and there's nothing you can really lose by doing so. It's not like you said, you can't get deplatformed really, or I wouldn't say you can't get deplatformed. I'll just say it's not like a YouTube where
Right.
But thank you for saying that. That's something I'm going to share with our developer team, because they do work extremely hard to make that the reality. So they're actually going to feel very good about that. So thank you very much, Monica. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to also say that we as a community should want vendors to succeed, which is wild that this is not the way that it goes. And granted, many vendors are predatory, and
Yes.
we should not necessarily want every vendor to succeed. We should be investing our time, energy, and effort, some percentage of it, to saying these companies, I want to succeed, and they are good for my growth. Just I'm assuming everyone here on Substack for the same reason. You give Substack 10% of your revenue, and in return, and a percentage of probably an irrational percentage of your attention, but in return, they give back what is hopefully more than that, or at least equal exchange. It is equivalent, as opposed to Amazon, where Amazon hasn't done a ton to make authors' lives easier in when was the day that KU launched? 10 years ago, whatever. That moment was
2012, but yeah.
yeah, so what is that? Almost 15, close to 15
Yeah,
years? And
yeah,
this,
it's
I
like
want
12.
Amazon to, but I also want Amazon to succeed because like
Yeah.
authors like sell a lot of books there. And so like I guess my thesis, like the thesis of Writer MBA Con, one of them was like vendors want you to succeed and you should actively seek out new ones to try and like learn about. And what I've learned after doing this for 15 years in publishing is like a lot of times you look away from somebody and then you come back and you're like, oh, wow, like you now
Mhm.
have like 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 100 million people on your site, on your platform. And like, I should have like been in early because if I was in early,
Yep.
it's that Gary V thing. Like Gary V was like, be everywhere, invest a little bit of time, energy, and effort in it so that if it does pop off, like I'm at the top of that attention seeking. And like I did find that on Substack. Like there's a couple people that I know are on here that like were on Substack when Notes launched, like I was. And it's like, oh, like we on some level, like we won Substack because we were there at that time and saw disproportional growth. And then suddenly everyone is talking down chain about that thing. I definitely saw that on Kickstarter too. Like, oh, well, like when people talk about Kickstarter, they talk about our book, they talk about like our methodology. And like, so in the same way, it's like we should want vendors to succeed and we should be spending a percentage of our time, whether that is 1% or 10% or 25, whatever that is, testing out these new potential things and saying, oh, that's not for me right now. That is for me right now. Okay. And what I love about this is like it feels like $50 is like an equivalent exchange for me to spend an
Yeah.
hour setting up my site, doing my thing, sharing it around, seeing if it's for me. Like it feels like I'm I'm being served for my attention. And if a platform is willing to service my attention when I'm making no money for them, then in general, I feel like they probably are invested in making in protecting my attention and my revenue in the future.
Oh yeah. I mean, and we definitely are. That kind of goes to something Monica said too, where it's like we are at a stage where if you try it out as an author and you're just like, hey, I would love to see this feature, we actually do pay very close attention to that. We're constantly changing the platform. It is our mission to have the best solution for authors, period. So, but to piggyback on something you were saying, Russell, I do appreciate you saying that. It's a little more genuine coming from you guys as authors than coming from me. I'm, of course, super biased, but I do want to reiterate that point. It kind of goes back to what I said at the very beginning of the show, and it's in a way, I'm kind of hoping for a little bit of a peaceful revolution. And it's so peaceful because you, as the author, you're in control of your content. It's not like you're going to have to make a stink or stand in the street with a sign or type up a post degrading another platform. That's done a lot for authors. It's basically like you're just going to choose where your content goes. And we're hoping to provide a solution where that choice works in your favor and works in the reader favor. Neither is being compromised. And that's kind of the solution we're trying to push out there. But the ask I do want to make of authors is to go towards your point, Russell, like a little bit on the commitment side, a little bit on the sort of teamwork side. We're doing everything we can do to change the industry, but it does require the authors as well. Like if you're an author and you're upset with something that's happening on other platforms, alone, nothing's going to happen. Even if you raise the biggest stink in the world, nothing will happen with that. But as authors kind of join together and decide that they want to change the way the future is going to look for digital, especially like a very dark part of this industry, then that starts to gain power. And then that power comes with a lot of benefits. One of the benefits could easily be that the platforms that are, the go-to platforms change their fee structure. You could have Audible, instead of saying, okay, exclusivity, we're only going to give you 40%, to switching that to being above half. Something simple like that.
As it once was, I want to say. It used to be. They got the market cornered pretty early and switched up the fees on authors. I don't know. That was 2016 maybe, Russell? Do you remember? Somewhere around
I
there,
I, I
2014,
remember it
2015,
happened, but
2016.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds about right.
Yeah, so it used to be, I don't even know if most authors know that, but it used to be like 60%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they switched
Well,
it, so yeah.
Like that's a little bit, more than industry standard, but it's like one of
Mhm.
those where it's not too far, But now when I look at it,
Right.
I'm like, wow, that is just like so far, especially considering I can tell you as an engineer how easy it is to deliver a ton of MP3 files, like heavy files. 1 gigabyte of MP3 files, still not hard and getting easier
Yeah.
every minute. Like the serverless infrastructure that everything on the internet is going towards makes it so affordable to do so. So I'm going to unveil the industry a little bit there, but it's like actually super cheap to send those files. So it's not coming from a place of cost. It's coming from a place of monopoly and, shareholder
Yeah.
earnings, things like that, like things that they are beholden to,
Mhm.
But so I don't mean to disparage them
Well,
too much, but it is one of those things where like, I do want to reiterate that ask, like we're trying everything on our side, and anyone that wants to kind of join and help us do what we think the industry needs, we're super appreciative of. And, ultimately we're hoping to have all the incentives line up on your side so that any effort that's put in will come out like in spades. There's something interesting with the way our platform works. You obviously have a cost of goods for creating a book, the time, the editing, the whole works. After that point in time, for digital, if you use Curios, your revenue from sales can be your profit, right? So every book you sell, you can get that entire amount. So if you look at your current sales network or how many books you sell in a year, you can do that math now. And obviously, the math isn't one-to-one because your readers are in different places. They're not necessarily accustomed to coming to Curios. Hard to pull them all in and change things up. But that is the future we're trying to pave, is one where, like, on the digital side, your revenue is your profit. You sell $2 million in digital books, you have $2 million coming to your bank account. Not one where I sold $2 million in books and that was a good $60,000 a year for me, which is great money. I'm not going to disparage that kind of income, but it's one of those things where like it's not lining up. There's too much gap between how efficient it is to deliver the content and then how much money is being made for it and how much money you're receiving as the creator. And that's a widening gap. We want to then like narrow that as much as possible. So
yeah, I want to go back to audiobooks because I feel like audiobooks is actually a good area of publishing that does mimic the music industry quite a bit more to some of your points. I also think, like as an author, I do not feel like there are any great audiobook options right now. Like truthfully, like when I really, really look at the market, because it's basically like the big players are Amazon, obviously, and then there are a bunch of smaller players that all got wrapped up in Findaway Voices, which then got bought by Spotify. So it's basically these two channels, and both are bigger tech companies, and very heavily following the streaming models that have that have dominated tech, but especially music. So like as an author, I don't feel like audiobooks really have a great place for us. And I think like even if you wanted to stay in Kindle Unlimited, or even if that is like your current bread and butter, you could move all your audiobooks to Curios. And so like even if that's like your entry point to Curios, Curios does the audiobook stuff too. So it's like you can test it without even leaving Kindle Unlimited. And you could just say like I'm like my audiobooks are here now. I know some authors have withdrawn from Amazon audiobooks. They've withdrawn from Amazon exclusivity in audiobooks too. And or they've like withdrawn from Spotify, or because of like they've had to reject some of those other models. So it's like and some, probably they're selling on like a direct store, but it's like if you don't have the energy or the time or the know-how to do that direct store and get that Shopify site up, or if you just want to add, to your visibility and like distribution, Curios is a great place for audiobooks. Yeah, maybe even better for it than ebooks at this moment because of the musician side.
I do think that, not to disparage my own platform, but I do think we handle audio like incredibly well. I encourage anybody to, even if you want to try it out, hop on. There's a ton of free audiobooks offered by different authors, especially like first in series, which is a great strategy. Grab one of the free books, see how the platform works, see how our app works for playback, and I think everyone's going to be like very pleasantly surprised. You shouldn't find any difference between that and your favorite audiobook app. On top of that, we work with as many platforms as possible. So it's not like you're just beholden to our app to listen. You can listen on a lot of places. But there's something about the direct. We're often asked about the difference between us and then a Shopify-like store. And with the Shopify store, you get a little bit more elements of the kind of control in your layout and how the pages look and things like that. But you are very much lacking the marketplace community. And it's a thing where if readers are accustomed to going to a place and they're accustomed to using an infrastructure to read or listen or things like that, getting them to do a very slight modification, so buy from a different author, for instance, is an extremely easy jump. And we offer that. Whereas on Shopify, you have to pull every single reader to a new destination that they maybe haven't been to or that they're not accustomed to going to. If you're on a book release cycle, your readership would then be visiting your Shopify in these bursts, and there's no habitual behavior behind that. Whereas in a marketplace infrastructure, you add the habitual behavior. They just finished an audiobook on our app. They're looking for the very next one. And there you can be right there ready for them sort of scenario. So
Awesome.
there is that extra element that Shopify is much harder to provide. And then, of course, there's the VAT. If you sell on Shopify, you are the merchant of record. You've got to be the global tax expert. You've got to calculate all those things. And more, there's tools for calculating, but you're responsible, right? Whereas Curios is responsible for collecting the VAT. So very simply, you're just receiving your royalties and you do your income tax like normal, but you don't have to do anything else, which makes kind of a big difference there too. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, we're wrapping up. So I want to, but I do want to make this point because we both kind of touched on it. But like the advantage of being on a platform when it is in its earlier stages is like you get a voice in a way that you don't on Amazon. Like if you think that the industry should like work in a certain way that doesn't, like companies like Curios are persuadable, not just to like join their mission, but like their mission can become your mission. And I think Monica and I have seen this across many, 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 many places who we've worked with, where like I am not a big time author. Like I have a rather large audience in like some aspects, but like I'm not pulling in $1 million or something like that, even like $50,000 from any one platform. But like I can go to these places where I have relationships with, and like they actually want to hear from what authors think, and they want to make the experience better. And it's often that they don't want to fix an experience. It's that they have not heard that experience or had it explained to them in a way that makes it easy for them to understand. But like I have had dozens of conversations with companies and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're going to go fix that." Like I've been asked to like hold off releasing articles until they like fix specific things. They're like, "Oh, yeah, like that is a so like I've like you can have like if you have a mission to like fix some aspect. Like for instance, like I have a mission to make BookFunnel like to accept CBZ files. And like that is just my little hobby horse to make things better for comic book people. And like every time that I come across a platform, I'll be like, yeah, but what are you doing for comic book people? Like, how are you making CBZs and like PDFs easily readable? Like all of, and like to their credit, some like platforms have made significant changes. Others have said we can't do that for this reason right now, but it's on a roadmap. Others have said this is a way that you can make it easier. We've actually fixed it. We just don't talk about it a lot. But like you get a choice with platforms like a Curios or companies that are not Amazon or like any of the major retailers because like they aren't necessarily ingrained. Like they are not like, we can't fix this because it is built on this thing that happened
Right.
in 2008 when like our thing started. So like even though we know this is dumb, it has to stay this way because otherwise the whole site will break. And you're like, oh,
Oh
great.
man, that's so
Like,
true.
and so like if you want a voice, or if you have an opinion of like how the audio, how the world, how the industry should work, then like being vocal on platforms like Curios and smaller platforms gives you a chance to actually positively influence the industry in a way you just are not going to on Amazon.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as I mentioned before, like we do really want to hear that feedback. If you've been looking for a solution for a long time and then nobody has given you that solution, that is like music to our ears because of what we're trying to do. You know, we want this to be the best destination for authors that is theoretically possible. So we love the feedback, you know, and that's why the platform, all the compliments you guys have given, I want everyone to know that those are thanks to a lot of the earlier authors that were coming on in September and October of last year that gave us incredibly good feedback. You know, it's not really a testament to our team, it's a testament to the author community and the ones who have been vocal. We had plenty of authors basically like rip through the platforms A to Z, and they gave us tons of feedback. We then were able to incorporate it, and now we're, you know, it's nice to get compliments on the site, you know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we like to operate. And I did that. Like, and, yeah, please give us your
All right.
feedback.
That's awesome.
Monica, any final thoughts or questions before we sign off, and then I'll give Greg the last word.
No, too long. I do, but we have to talk later. Yeah,
All right, cool. All right, Greg, then want a last thought, last thing to do, where we can find how we can
That's a good
get
point.
that cheddar.
Mention how to use the platform and things. You know, our main kind of landing page sort of website, curios.com. It's got tons of information, support tutorial articles like that.
Hang on, spell Curios because it's not the normal way you would expect necessarily.
Curios. So Curios, like a curio, you know, object of curiosity. And then the author tool is studio.curios.com. That's the management tool where you'll be able to upload, manage, set things up. You know, just encourage everyone to give that a try. It's not going to take much time for you to try it out. And then as you use it, you know, give us your feedback. If you hated it, I would love to know that, you know. So we want to change this industry. We know we have to do it together. So the last pitch is basically like, give it a try. If you're upset with how things are working, that's why we made the platform. So I encourage you to just reach out to us. Let's join in it together, and together we can do a lot. Collaboration is like the greatest unlock in the universe. So if we all collaborate, it's going to be very fast and very meaningful change in this industry that I think needs it, you know, so that's it.
All right.
But thank
so
you.
That's Curios, Curios.com. Go over there, and I look forward to. I enjoyed hanging out with y'all. Look forward to seeing you again, and we'll talk next time.
Sounds
Bye.
Good.
Bye.